Hi, this is Jing with the Bali Business Review, and today I'm in Pudigading in Jimbaran. So with the recent news of war in the Middle East and also the price war that's happening in Bali and some of the market failure conditions and also more imposing and strict government regulations to gain business licenses, is there any good news left at all in Bali? What can a potential investor do to protect their asset and gain the most advantage in these very, very difficult times? Well, come with me into our office today and I'll show you a few things that we've learned over almost a decade and a half of working with thousands of property investors from hundreds of countries that I'll share with you today. We'll go into the framework for what successful investors adopt as a strong mindset in order to deal with turbulent times. We'll go ahead and go into a deep dive and take a look at our amazing Aether 3D spatial map across different regions of Bali and how they're performing during this season, and also investigate what's happening in terms of what winning properties look like in terms of their design, location, and reviews, and what some of the less successful properties also look like. You don't want to miss this episode of the Bali Business Review. All right, welcome to our office and step inside. I'm gonna bring you over to this table over here, this simple green table where we've had, probably thousands of conversations with thousands of property investors all throughout Bali. I'll share with you some of the observations that I've learned from some of the most successful property investors that you should know about.
The key is learning something new. Seek out the
Okay, let's start with a cup of coffee and get into a serious discussion about what you as an investor in Bali real estate can do to gain the most advantage and avoid the most strategic threats this year in 2026. So the first thing I think that every successful investor that has passed through these doors has had is a clear vision. So as an investor, the promises of sitting back and doing nothing while you earn income is not exactly true. So I would say the best type of investor comes to Bukit Vista, comes to Bali with a vision. They already have an idea that is crystallized in their mind of what they want to do. They're able to articulate that vision to anybody. They're able to articulate that vision to a real estate agent, to a property developer, to a property manager. Of course, the most important party to understand your vision is the guest. Successful vision communication will reflect in guest reviews of your property, which is the second most, let's say, important attribute that I've seen with successful investors is the ability to learn. The real learnings of understanding how to operate a business in Indonesia only come with probably experience, or if you are a fan of the show, from watching some of our previous episodes on this channel. So the ability to learn the facts about business permitting, about product market fit, about the location in which you have bought your property, the ability to learn about new design trends. This is an important distinguishing characteristic I've seen that successful investors, unsuccessful investors generally will not learn. And also they do not curate or qualify the quality of their information. The third attribute that is super important is the ability to recognize and attract talent. Yes, when you are operating in Bali, you're going to have to rely on probably other people to help you look after your guests and your property while you're not here. So the problem with a lot of unsuccessful investors is that they only take a surface level appearance for what they think talent might look like. Perhaps they see an attractive lady that walks through a beautiful villa in a beautiful gown and they think that this is talent. But what is true talent oftentimes is the people who are diligently focused on operating your property in order to ensure 5-star reviews. So sometimes these people don't look like models. These people simply could be engineers, they could be technicians, they could be housekeepers, they could be any number of silent staff that work diligently to ensure that your property is successful. Unless you yourself want to self-manage and deal with the day-to-day struggles of a hospitality operation in a developing nation with unknown and shifting regulations and also business climate and market turbulence.
Perfect scores for every stay. A super host will light the way. It's vision, learning, talent in your hand to build your win. winning future in Bali.
In the meantime, why don't we do this? Why don't we go over to my very, very powerful Mac Studio computer over here. And okay, so the first thing I should probably explain is how we built Aether here at Buena Vista. So Aether is a data visualization tool that is based on accumulating Airbnb reviews. If you take a look at my screen, I will pivot and pan around the airport. So this is the Norai Airport. It's a reference point we can all begin from. I think everybody knows where that is. Let's go ahead and take a look at what the heat map over here can show us, okay? So what you're seeing on this map is essentially the visual representation of reviews. And I'll go into a simple, let's say, example of that so you can see it very easily. Let's just go ahead and click on this one over here. So this is an Airbnb listing titled Samblung Mas House, Room 3. It's got an overall rating of 4.9, 184 reviews. So let's go ahead and click on it and open it up. And here's what it looks like. So this is the number of reviews, and this is the overall review score. 4.88 is actually a very good score on Airbnb. It's in the top probably 5 to 10% of the entire listing set that is out there. And this is what this property looks like over here, right? It's a simple bedroom in what looks to be like a Balinese house with, I guess, a traditional design. So it's doing fairly well here. And so that's an example of a property that is doing very good. Let's go ahead and see if we can find a property that's not doing so good. Properties that are more red indicate lower quality. It means that their review scores are probably around 3 to 4 out of 5 stars. So we can probably click on these and see if they still exist. Okay, so we clicked on it, and this is an example of a property of pretty much low quality. It's a new cozy loft B on Sunset Road. And we know it's low quality because the review score is 4.29 with 31 reviews. So if we dig deeper into the reviews, we can see that I guess the cleanliness is below the ideal standard of 4.5 with a 4.2. Check-in's okay at 4.6, and communication and location are fairly low at 4.2 and also 4.3 on location. Value doesn't seem that good as well with a score of around 4.4. Okay, so once we've seen 2 examples of this, when we zoom out of, let's say, a micro area and we start looking at major regions, what we're seeing is the regional performance. So if I basically pull the graph over to this side, you can see the accumulation of reviews on different listings as we go up the coastline from, let's say, over here in Kuta up to Lagan, over to Canggu. And so if we want to spin around, we can look at it from the land side looking out towards the ocean. Perhaps we can also change maybe the color. Let's change this color to a lighter color. Okay, I'm not sure if that makes it a little bit easier or harder to understand. We can change also this map view. Okay, that's probably the visualization that expresses the ocean side better. So we're looking at the regions of Kuta, Seminyak, and Lagan, looking at the land side out west, and you can see the ocean is faintly visible as an outline there, okay? So basically from this, we can gather which particular areas are of high popularity and high quality, and which particular areas are of lower quality. So here's an example of a cluster of low quality listings. These are all fairly underrated, and the reason that they don't grow tall and get very big is because the platform, like Airbnb, automatically has a market quality control mechanism that basically stops giving opportunities to properties that cannot get consistent 5-star reviews. So this is why you see that most of the red bars are fairly short. And if we take a look at it, we can see, okay, here's what the property looks like, the core room number 4, and it's disastrously low at a 4.14 review score with 14 reviews. And let's see, the most recent review was sometime around 2019, or here's a few around 2020. Let's see if we can sort these out into okay, so most relevant to the most recent. So by sorting it out, we can see when the last review was given, and that was almost 6 years ago, almost 6 years ago. So this is an example of a listing that is probably no longer very active, and that's why it's also short. But let's go along and pick another random property over here. Let's pick one of these green bars. We'll probably take this one over here. Let's see, I'm having a little bit of lag while the data is loading here. Give it a second. So let's see, we click on this one. And this is a luxury private villa, walking distance to the beach. Okay, this is an Airbnb Lux property. It's doing fairly good. 120 reviews at a 4.83 review score. It's part of Airbnb Lux, which is the highest quality tier of property on Airbnb. It's hosted by Max, who is a super host. So this is an indication of quality and good signal. So we can go over here and take a look at the reviews again, and we'll sort it out to the most recent. We see that the most recent was given about a week ago. So that's a very high quality listing, and that's what high quality listings look like. They have recent reviews, they have also a consistent track record of performance, and the host's profile is a super host, which means that there's a consistent record of high quality performance in terms of communication, location, value, check-in, cleanliness. So that's a host that does their job. Okay, so as we look across, we can do a few more tricks here, I guess, to make this process simpler. So I'm going to elevate the minimum review quality to a higher level here. If you watch my cursor over here, we're going to take a look at only the properties that have a 4.9 or above. Okay, so what you see now, I've filtered this out, and I'm going to switch the scene back into a dark background so that it's more visible. Okay, so over on the bottom half of the screen is the Indian Ocean, and the forest of green that you see here are consistent with the best and highest performance properties on Airbnb in terms of quality. That's why they are dark green. These are the ones that have at least a 4.9 review score, and you can see there's such an abundance of them. There's probably thousands of those kinds of properties that are already in this segment. Unbeknownst to many people, a lot of these actual high performance properties don't actually look that great. In fact, sometimes they're like this one is a 4.94, and it's got 208 reviews. It's a guest favorite. The most recent review was placed about a week ago also. So this is a pattern that you can see with high performance properties. They consistently get reviews at a steady pace, and that's what makes them more competitive. And let's go ahead and take a look at some of the rates here for March. So we're looking at the rates, and we're seeing that the rates are also very competitive too. It's about $25 for each night, $108 for 4 nights. Okay, so let's keep on looking at the winners along the area. So over here, we are looking pretty much at the Kuta area, and you can see in Kuta there is a lack of high quality listings of any note. You can see that the abundance of higher quality listings really begins once you pass Legan and go further up the beach. But instead of just focusing, let's say, on the west coast of Bali, let's go and investigate another region of Bali too as well. Let's go ahead and take a look at the Bukit area. So this will take a moment as we wait for the data up here to load. So I'll give it a second while the data loads up. Okay, that loading just took way too long, so let me pivot to another area. Let's look at the highest quality listings in Ubud now. So in Ubud, this one seems to be a pretty interesting outlier. Now, you know when you see an outlier when you have a local maximum. That means it's one particular listing that is much, much taller than anything else, like this one right here. So, okay, that one you can see more clearly now. This one is very evident. So this is a September offer gorgeous villa, so let's take a look at it. So this house has done something interesting. They've decided to actually create a special price for March. It's a gorgeous jungle villa. So once again, super, super high score, 4.9, which is almost perfect across 232 reviews, which is very hard to do. And they're a 2-bedroom villa, and they look very, very good. In fact, I think I remember the host for this particular property. They've been doing this for a while. Oh, yes, of course, yeah, Rissy. This host and I got to know each other because she used to work in the first co-working space in Ubud called Ubud. So taking a look at the performance, you can see very consistent 5-star reviews, perfect cleanliness, accuracy, check-in perfect, communication perfect. Location a little bit strained, and this is a good point to actually talk about location. So a location that is, let's say, not so dense, that is sparse in terms of overall reviews, will be generally a location that is more challenging than a location with, let's say, an abundance of reviews like over here in the core of Ubud. So this might come as a bit of a counterintuitive fact to some property owners that before, if you're a pioneer in an area, you're like the first person to open a villa, it's actually a good idea to have some neighbors who are also pioneers in that area and also getting 5-star reviews together with you. And the reason is because as a pioneer, you generally need to build up quite a lot of reviews for your location before your location surfaces as a high quality location in the general Airbnb algorithm. So that's something to keep in mind. You're not necessarily competing with your neighbors at the onset of developing a new area. You're actually cooperating with your neighbors to build value in that location by earning as many 5-star reviews together as a group. And then after, let's say, a location becomes really successful, then it becomes, I guess, every person for themselves. So let's go ahead and take a look at another outlier over here on this region, and we can see what's available here. Oh, I stayed in this property, actually. I remember this one. We visited, and this was actually a very delightful experience as well. So this is in Gianyar, which is, once again, outside of the normal Ubud area. It's hosted by Putu. Very difficult to attain such a high score. 4.92 on 363 reviews means that they've been consistently delivering delight, consistently delivering perfect experiences. And so if we, once again, go down and drill inside, we'll see that the most recent review was probably left 2 weeks ago. So this property, while being really good, is also getting reviews a little bit slower than some of the previous properties we looked at, and that's that. Okay, now that's it for this episode. Now that you've seen how we identify winners and winning regions, I'll go into a deeper dive at showing you what to avoid. We'll go ahead and take a look at the 3D spatial map again, and we'll take a look at which designs seem to not work and which managers seem to also perform worse than other managers, and what are some of the qualities that, let's say, make a property less competitive in such a marketplace like what we're facing right now here in Bali. All right, that's it. This is Jing again from the Bali Business Review, and thank you for watching this episode. Look forward to seeing you again on the next episode, where we'll be sharing you, once again, some good tips on what to think about in order to be a successful property investor in 2026. Stay around and keep watching. And of course, if you see anything that triggers an idea, please like, comment, and subscribe. We always want to have a deeper engagement with our audience as such. All right, ciao.